G'day everybody, Simon here, Explosive Action. It is time again to do the annual room tour. Take a look around the man cave, around the media shelves. Let's get into it. So as usual, we start at the entrance of the man cave, and you're already going to see some changes from last year. Over here I have the China O'Brien 2 poster hanging quite proudly above my display bookshelf. Now this was a new addition a few months ago. This is where I put a lot of the large magazines and horror books, metal books, all the reference guides, that kind of stuff. And also put a couple of shelves here of sort of favourite soft covers and a lot of the horror pulps I've been collecting, they go up here. So yeah, this is a fun addition. I have a lot more books than this, but they are in tubs and kind of hidden away. But yeah, this is the new edition of the new media shelves for books. Those of you that really pay attention to this room's layout will notice I can now see outside. One of the big infrastructure changes we made last year, big foundational change, was to rip out the old rear garage door, which had annoyed me since we moved into the house, and put in some sliding doors, which means I can see out to the garden when I'm working, and yeah, much more pleasant than looking at a rusty old roller door. So if we skip over the things that you would find in a garage, being tools and tool shed kind of stuff, and go straight into the media, the first thing that you walk into in this room are records, and over here I've got no longer the firebox. I deprecated the firebox. I was finding it a little annoying to find the kind of things I wanted to listen to by having a box like that. I wanted to get everything back into genres and A to Z, and I have done that. But what I've got up here on the top is sort of collections from artists and bands where I've got enough to put a whole bunch of stuff together. I've been using these dividers. So, all in here is all the Nagelfar and then Ruins and Beveras stuff, all the Nars Alchemist projects, Ifanak, Macho Huito, Lamp of Murmur, Ebony Pendant, Evil Feast, and then all of the stuff that these guys put out, which is quite a significant amount. And I find it quite handy having these tubs up here to flip through those kinds of things. Over here in the corner is the small selection of 7 inches. I don't have very many. Not a format I play very often. I do find it somewhat annoying, but yeah, I do have a handful. If you take a look at the first shelf here, you'll notice there's some tubs. And if you were paying attention to the previous year's videos, this used to be a cupboard. I've replaced that nasty cupboard and pretty much all the nasty old shelves and things in here with much more appropriate for a garage sort of metal framed shelves. These things would be known well to Australians. You get them from Bunnings Hardware, and yeah, very useful to have in a garage. I've also really upped my labelling game. So if you look at these tubs, this is where all the science fiction DVDs kind of overflow to. Space is a premium, so not everything can be displayed. I won't go through these tubs. I might take you through some later ones on another shelf, but yeah, science fiction A through Z DVD format is in these tubs. If we go down a bit here, this is the Japanese VHS. I always like to have this shelf here. It's triple deep. You can see going back. And yeah, I really am improving the labeling game. I have a label gun now, so yeah, it might seem kind of obvious to say Japanese VHS there, but you'll start noticing more of those around. Below that, we've got science fiction television. I've got quite a lot of sci-fi TV shows, a lot of things from Sci-Fi Channel, sort of from the 2010 era. I just got done watching the mythology episodes of the X-Files for the umpteenth time. Gee, that's a law of diminishing returns by the time you get to sort of series 8 and 9. Anyway, horror television as well, so you can find horror series in there. And then we move down here into some of the records. Now, the records kind of start over there, but then they flow over onto this side in the A to Z, and then back over down into here. But we will start that journey from the start. So this is a more familiar view. If you watch my videos, this is where you will see me generally sitting, and the camera sits opposite here, and there's my usual sitting place with a turntable and some DVDs and CDs behind it. And this is also where my hi-fi lives. So let me quickly go through that. I've got it's all vintage hi-fi to various degrees. The oldest thing I've got here is this Pioneer PL71 direct drive turntable. Absolutely love this thing. It's a wonderful turntable, smooth as silk, and it's running a Nagaoka MP110 cartridge with the corresponding head shell. And yeah, it's just great. It works perfectly. Smooth as silk, and it's an excellent turntable. Below that, we've got a full Pioneer black, sort of mid to late 90s layout. These are not these three devices here. We've got the amplifier, a dual cassette, and a CD player with 3 CDs on the left and a CD recorder on the right. This is by no means premium stuff. I just like the aesthetic, and given this room, the sound quality is really, really good for me, particularly from this amplifier. It's a really good one. So yeah, Pioneer A109 Direct Energy MOS amplifier. We've got a CTW208R dual tape deck, so you can go from A to B if you want. And this odd little unit, the PDR W839, which has 3 CDs on the left, and you can record on the right, and it can record from the CDs or it can record from other sources, which is really useful. I've done that a few times. And this is where the records start properly. I have sort of loosely thrown together speed / thrash metal. It also includes just regular heavy metal, but it's outnumbered by speed and thrash. So it's kind of just basically everything 80s, early 90s that is not death and black metal gets kind of thrown in here, but it is a very much has a focus on speed and thrash metal, and most of it's original pressing stuff. So it's quite tightly packed. It's just what I gotta have to deal with in the room in here. There's a cloven hoof that I've managed to pull out there, and really enjoy having these in this kind of order. It continues down to there, and then when we get to here, we're into death metal territory. Starts A to Z and goes through to there, and that's when we go back over to these shelves, and this is where death metal continues on over this side here, and then it goes down to here, which is where it ends at the moment. So we've got some Zealot Cult there, ending it on Z, and then we are into the black metal section, A to Z, starting through here, and then if we take a little trip again back over here, that's where it continues, black metal, and it goes all the way down to the bottom there. So yeah, combining with the records here on top, I've got quite the collection, I think. Now I'm pretty happy with, and it's going to prove a little difficult to play some Tetris to fit more in. I have a little grind and gore section as well over here. So all your death grind and gore grind and just gore themed death metal stuff all feels appropriate to put together, so I have that over here. So you'll see some of the CDs here behind, they're all A to Z, but they start here in these stands, which I've had for years. They're not my favourite thing in the world, but given the constraints of the room, I do keep them. Starts here, A for Abigor, A for Oceans. And just continues down, goes around the side there on the left, and then goes down to the bottom. Then it's a little unfortunate, but then I have to roll them out to get to the inners there, and onto the next side here, where we pick up again with F, goes down to the bottom, and then over here on the side again, as I said, you have to pull them out. Not too hard, they're on wheels, but then the next letters continue over here. Some of them a little difficult to get to over there, but not too bad. And the rest of the CD collection goes on down there. And, it's all reasonably easy to get to. So that's the CDs. This little rack here is sort of the inbox, the things I'm currently listening to, the brand new stuff that's come in. So I haven't shown these things yet on the channel. You will see them at some point, more mix of kinds of things. And I find it kind of easy to have this old school rack that I found at my parents' place, and just use that as to flip through things that are sort of being listened to or have just arrived. Up here I got some of my favourite VHS. You can see my number 1 VHS of all time, which is Deadly Prey. What a classic. Sure, I've got it on Blu-ray. The Blu-ray looks like a VHS anyway, but I like having the original Australian tape. A few other classics up there, at least, classics, but Then up here we've got the Sci-Fi channel DVDs. You see the arrow pointing up, and then the Asylum DVDs pointing down. The Sci-Fi channel ones are all in chronological air date order. Yes, I am that guy. And yeah, I did a little Sci-Fi channel documentary video. You could go watch that, where I went through all these DVDs. And the Asylum DVDs, which I just kept them A to Z. So, yeah. Got to be in the right mindset to want to watch an Asylum film, I got to tell you that much. One of the things I always wanted as a kid was a Garfield phone. And it just, you know, kind of helped that Godfrey Ho used a Garfield phone in a couple of his films, and we're starting to get those on Blu-ray now, which is just, what a world are we living in. So yeah, very happy to have my Garfield phone here. He works, you plug him into the phone line, he still works. The inbox for CDs, similar to the records, this is the new stuff that's coming that I'm listening to. We've got a few sort of fancy box sets here. My Greasy Strangler Blu-ray in the Grease, or Greasy, but in the Grease font beanie, which I won at the night premiere in Australia. We've got the Stargate SG-1 box sets just there because it's massive. A few little toy cars in front of it. Phantasm ball collection there. A few other knickknacks. And this giant Silk poster, which I picked up a couple of years ago. Very happy to be able to hang that one now. Love that poster. The film is not quite as good as the poster, but you know, Silk 2 is actually an improvement over the first one. Got the Carcass itinerary, which I showed in my Metal Tag 2024 video with the Recaputrefaction cassette there in front of it. So yeah, nice little sort of display corner over here. And over here is sort of the workstation where I do my day job and where I do the video editing, and just hang around and browse Facebook and waste time. But yeah, it's nestled nicely between, of course, a whole bunch of movies and my absolute favourite poster of all time, which was my vintage Robo Wall poster. Got this from a seller in Greece. Not too sure if it is a Greek poster or Italian poster. It's all in English, but yeah, absolutely love that one. Got a frame for it and everything. A few posters there behind the ladder that's built into the wall. Takes you into the manhole. We won't bother going up there. It's full of garbage. Down here I've got kind of hidden this Total Recall wooden plaque. Picked up from a charity store back when I was a teenager, and I've carried it from house to house. Very cool, love having that one. This here, I'm a big Doctor Who fan. I've talked about it many times. I don't show it too much on the channel, but yeah, pretty much all the Doctor Who DVDs. I've kept a handful of the more special VHS, and I've been buying the collection series on Blu-ray. Got a few books as well. Modern series down there. And lastly, on this bottom shelf and behind those DVDs there, one thing I don't really talk about is I really do like retro gaming and retro computers. Don't have the room really to deal with that much anymore, but these are all the old magazines that I had for my first computer, the Atari ST, in 1992 and up. Got quite the collection and I never let them go, so yeah, do enjoy reading through some of my old magazines. This shelf over here is the science fiction Blu-rays. It's kind of split into a couple of sections. Really, it's sort of the older films up to the 90s that are on Blu-ray, including box sets. And we've got some more modern series in here as well. And yeah, down the bottom here we've got sort of the 80s kids sci-fi and 80s kids fantasy films. So yeah, this is pretty much all the Blu-rays for science fiction and fantasy. Keep them all in one collection there. Over here is where all the Mediabooks and Hardboxes go. I've got quite a few. Not entirely my favourite format. You pay a lot and you can't read any of it because it's all in German. But I do have a few, and I've got a handful of Steelbooks as well. So yeah, they got their own little rack. They fit nicely. Well, the first of the mega shelves here, this is the second half of the Action Blu-ray and DVD. Pretty much sort of the Action Blu-rays alphabetized starting around about here of the pre-2000s. I keep modern separate to older stuff. It makes more sense to me. So yeah, it's predominantly sort of 70s and 80s and early 90s stuff in here. Goes into the DVDs that follow the same suit all the way down. And we get to about here. And starts again, but takes a bit of a more modern focus, so sort of 2000s and up, or very late 90s. It all depends on the feeling of the film. So yeah, and it goes all the way down here to the bottom. A couple of things I need to sort, but yeah, that's action DVDs and Blu-rays. If we take a bit of a step behind Godzilla's butt, I've got a section here for PM Entertainment. Love my PM Entertainment films. These are all in chronological order. Got their own little shelving section. And we now have supposedly a German company this year that's going to be releasing a bunch of them on Blu-ray. So yeah, looking forward to that. Taking a look at that little end cap there, this is where I've got a couple of fancy box sets. The Married with Children I picked up from the charity shop recently, and well, the figurines I picked up pretty much the day later from the same shop, which was ridiculous. So yeah, nice little thing to have there. I've got this sort of Sphinx head that just keeps following me around. I don't know. That's not from a movie or anything. It's just something I was gifted and I quite like it. Got some old Nika figures here from Bubba Hotep and a few other bits and pieces. And then over here we have sort of my little mini Monster Island Kaiju corner. We've got all the Godzilla Eastern Eye DVDs, which are very rare now. The Criterion set, which I've reboxed into a regular case, makes it easier to get them out. The Mammoth Gamera box, and yes, that Godzilla set, which the discs are now in here. Make life easier. Got Ultraman there, he's guarding the Ultraman box. And I have my Godzilla figurine. Well, he's a bit more than a figurine, he's a big figure, this bloke. Got this one from a friend when he passed away. And it was part of his collection, so I was very happy to give it a new home here, as well as he is guarding the Godzilla toilet roll. This is where the old school cassettes live, so I have these old Audio Sonic shelves I picked up from, well, not shelves, drawers I picked up off sort of Facebook Marketplace in 2 or 3 locations, and yeah, just A to Z of all my tapes. Not a huge collection, not a format I'm always trying to go out and buy. I really only like having demos and EPs on tape. I don't like having full lengths on tape. So yeah, pretty much everything here is sort of demos, with a few exceptions. And compilations, so like all the Noxious Ruin magazine tapes, yeah, they all live in there. So that's the tape collection. We go a bit deeper, we've got the Blind Dead DVD collection, and what a shame we can't get a nice Blu-ray box set of that. Hopefully one day we will, and the rights will get sorted out. This is where my war section is, which is something I'm working on a bit more this year. It's kind of just mixed in. I've got sort of all these DVD series here, which are a bit more modern films, Sniper and the like. I like the modern war films as much as the old ones. Jarhead, Marine, those things. But what I'm really working on is a lot of these classic, sort of pre-90s war films on Blu-ray. So yeah, trying to get that collection a bit more bolstered this year. And that moves into war DVDs. Again, just war films. When we get down to here, we jump straight into the Andy Sidaris collection, which I think I've got pretty much all of them. So yep, he gets his own selection. And sort of starting here, but really over here, is the Cirio Santiago collection. So all these films on DVD and Blu-ray I've managed to pick up so far. And we go down to the David Pryor films, which Killzone was the latest one to come out, and then the most proper Blu-ray of his early films. Speaking before about Deadly Prey, unfortunately that is basically a VHS on a Blu-ray. Hopefully they can find more prints like they did for Killzone, because it looks amazing. And yes, all the way up to his later films before he passed away. And then down here, got my Teddy Page collection. A lot of these are quite rare, some German DVDs in there, and some South African DVDs. But yeah, love having Teddy Page. Well, I think this section is what a lot of people are here for. This is the horror shelf. Now, you may remember I used to have shelves here that were single layer. These are new. These are IKEA Billy bookcases, and they are double layer. I don't find that quite annoying at all. Particularly using my label gun, I know where everything is, and well, you got to do what you got to do to fit stuff in, don't you? So yeah. What I really wanted to do with these, particularly, was having a bit of a focus on my Italian horror. I wanted to get some of this stuff sorted by the directors. And you can see these labels here. Argento there pushed up means it's behind at the back. And we've got Bava here at the front. Well, that kind of thing sort of repeats. We've got Bruno Mattei here at the front, and Lucio Fulci's behind. And there's no real rhyme or reason to the ordering and why I've done that. Plenty of space to fit things in. You can see some of the Fulci there at the back. Move on down here. Deodato films, Luigi Cosi, Umberto Lenzi, Joe D'Amato. Yeah, gotta love some Jess Franco. Trying to get a lot more of that in here. Sergio Martino, Antonio Margaretti, Lamberto Bava, and yes, Mr. Castellari himself down there gets a section as well. Before we kind of go into the Euro A to Z, and this is Euro horror. It's spaghetti western. It's anything Euro crime, anything with that flavour pretty much goes in here. You can see the collection going along. In DVDs and Blu-rays, there are some DVDs sort of at the back. You can see stuff there. Yeah, like there's an Emergency Squad, Formula for a Murderer. They're only on DVD so far. And sort of goes into the Blu-rays there. And then we move on to the 70s to 90s, pretty much American films we're talking at this point. So this is what I think a lot of people consider when they think horror. So, you know, you got your Brain Damage, you've got The Brain, you've got your Candyman. That's the kind of later period I'm getting to on here, you know, 90s. And yeah, enjoy having these shelves like this. I find it easier to find things by this kind of subgenre. When I just had horror A to Z, I find that quite overwhelming. So yeah. And there are some sort of box sets and things that you can see Reanimator there, sort of sitting at the back. We go back up the top here. Kind of got all my franchise horror here, so you know, your Exorcist, Fly, Junior Snaps, all that kind of stuff. Again, double stacked. I know where everything is. Got a little bit of a Troma slash Full Moon slash Empire Pictures going on here. I want to get a few more Empire and, you know, good quality Full Moon, but yeah, the awesome Empire Pictures box set there. Then we go into British horror. Got obviously a lot of Hammer here. Again, it's all double stacked. Bunch more British horror behind it. We go down here, more British horror. These are kind of loosely going Hammer and then Amicus and then Trigon and yeah, then whatever's sort of left at the end. Which is the fun thing with British horror. A lot of them were taken up by just a handful of small production studios. So, yeah, got the Pete Walker boxes there. Got some Eureka classic horror sets there because we move into classic horror. Anything that's not British, but goes from your 50s science fiction kind of, you know, sci-fi horror, sci-fi drive-in films. You know, man in a monster suit or spaceships blowing things up, through to more proper horror films, things like, you know, Flesh Eaters, and, you know, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, all that kind of stuff. And quite a bunch of that going on here. And we go into, I've got a Hitchcock section there that is all behind. So, a lot of my old Hitchcock DVDs, many of them were my wife's. The Psycho collection on Blu-ray. Down here we have a fantasy section. Pretty much anything sword and sorcery and dragon, it all ends up in here. Stop motion stuff. Ray Harryhausen gets a little mini section. Those wonderful Russian epics, they all go in here. And again, yeah, it's double stacked. I find it easy to find things. And down here we have a little Ozploitation section, Mad Max and all the Australian horror films. And then a little Stephen King series over here. I managed to get quite a few of his works, the things that the stories were based on him. So yeah, little Stephen King section. Moving up here, continue on with that 70s to 90s section again. Getting through to the X, Y, Zs. And some sort of box set overflows here. got some John Carpenter all together there. Didn't show you the box sets at the top, but these are not really double stacked. There's a couple that are behind, but I've got capacity to go back if I need to. Putting all my favourites at the front, particularly all these Vinegar Syndrome and Severin ones. Just amazing the amount of Euro horror they've been digging out of the later years, Euro crime. We go down here, we end up in modern horror, which loosely sort of starts around about basically Scream. That's kind of where I go. So that late 90s, anything past that is considered for me modern horror. Definitely 2000s up. And again, it makes sense to me to have that segregated from 70s and 80s horror. So, yep, double stacked again. Got some collections and things, you know, the Feast films, the Hatchet films. And we get down to here, and we get into Asian horror. Might need to do a little bit of work in here to just fix up some of the sorting, but essentially, yeah, this is Japanese J horror, Korean K horror, and Chinese horror, mainly Hong Kong. Fortune Star DVDs at the front, some of these newer sets, the Mr. Vampires from Eureka, and sort of modern Asian horror here at the front. Got my Ichi the Killer blood pack there just hanging out because it looks good. And then we have some of the newer box sets, some of the Cat 3 ones, the Arrow ones, Ring, Ju-on, and some old Eastern Eye horror box sets. So I did split up all the Eastern Eye, they're not all together, the horror ones live over here, and some of that is double stacked. And down here it's collections essentially, so multi-packs of things, and you got unrelated but related, you know, things like that. How would you sort that on a shelf? Well, that one's not a terrible example because they both start with C. But you know what I'm talking about. You can have Empire of the Ants and Jaws of Satan. Well, I just order them by the first title in this collection series here, and I find it easy to find this kind of stuff. It's all guarded by my giant pinhead. Over here in the corner we've got my gigantic Expendables 2 signed poster. Definitely got a Dolph Lundgren signature in there. I think it's got Terry Crews. I think it might be Randy Cortez. Yeah, it is. I've got those 3 signatures. I mainly wanted it for the Dolph signature, which is the one I believe up there. So that was a nice gift a few years ago when the film came out. There was a signing in the US and I had it shipped over. Got a little tower here, again of franchises, so all the TCMs, the Chuckies, the Universal Horrors, Halloween box, Friday the 13th box. It's neat having a little bit of a tower of power. And this is of course where I watch everything, so there's the TV. Got a few old Nika figurines again. There's a cool Robocop there at the front. Ash from Army of Darkness. Got the very old and kind of crackling and falling apart Books of the Dead. Got all 3 of those there. Some skulls just hanging out. There's Jason with his machete. They sort of bookend the TV. This is an older 2011 Panasonic Plasma. It's full HD, does not do 4K. I don't do 4K. I'm not sold on it. It's 46 inch, which, you know, this day and age everyone's got 600 inch televisions and I don't, but it's what I can fit in the garage, and given how close I sit to it, anything bigger would be rather stupid. This is what I'm feeding it. We've got currently a Oppo 105 there on top, which is a hardware mod chip to play everything. Below that technically is a UHD player, so I can play the discs, but they are obviously downscaled. But the main reason that's there is it's a TV tuner with a hard drive for recording. I got that for an absolute song, secondhand. Quite ridiculous how cheap I got that. It's not necessary, it's just kind of there. Next to it though, this is a cool thing. We've got a dedicated Sony VCD player. It's an Australian made, well not Australian made, but made for the Australian market VCD player. And I picked it up locally in my suburb for $20. Who knew there was a market at any point for a video CD player in Australia? Usually you find these things and they're made for Chinese market. They've got Asian writing on them, but no. This is an actual Australian VCD player. And it's great to have a dedicated one. I think the quality of VCD looks better through that than playing it through a DVD or Blu-ray player. Below that we've got my Fat Boy PlayStation 2. Been playing some Godzilla games with my son on that recently. Panasonic VCR. These Mark IIs from the late 90s, sort of 97, 98. They are absolute workhorses. You cannot kill them. Quality is really good. I used to have a range of Sony VCRs and their quality was great, but the mechanics were terrible and they kept breaking. So I'm sticking with these Panasonics. And a Pioneer D925 Laserdisc player, which is my main one. It plays PAL and NTSC. So yeah, I'm kind of sorted for all physical formats here. So over here used to be a decaying old bookshelf, and it is now again one of those modern garage shelves made of metal and wooden shelves. Got from the hardware store, got that from Bunnings. You can see this is where all the tubs are. I quite don't mind having this stuff in tubs. This is the things that don't need to be presented. I don't need to show off my comedy section, but I know that they're here, and I quite liked having these stupid stickers that I designed. I thought it was funny. And it's easy to get these things down. I don't want to grab the one on the top one-handed with a camera, but you know, where your cartoons are in a box, anime is in a box, comedy Blu-rays in a box, comedy DVDs all below it. VHS. Now, I used to have, you remember, Carousel here. Well, I really was trying to downsize all the Australian VHS, so I sold the Carousel on. What you see in these three tubs is what is left. If it is in this tub, they are not on DVD. It's as simple as that. So some of the later editions here, like Death Flash, no DVD. And yeah, easy to get to, I think. VHS. We get down here, these tubs here, this is sort of new horror, again following that sort of post-Scream era, mainly 2000s, 2010s up. And yeah, I find these quite easy to get things out of. Not difficult at all. Even when I'm doing that one-handed, a little bit hard to get back one-handed, but anyway. So that's the new horror. Drama, sort of slash thriller, basically real films, you know, Hollywood stuff, Oscar bait. Any big films sort of go up there. Sort of shot on video, horror, you know, ultra gory stuff lives in those tubs. Wouldn't mind perhaps one day getting them onto the main horror shelves and cycling something else out. You know, maybe put the fantasy in the tubs and get the SOV horror on the shelves. That's perhaps a project one day. Monster Pictures, I ended up with quite a lot of just Monster Pictures, and that's the Australian company that released films on DVD in sort of the 2010s to sort of 2020s. They kind of stopped now, but I've got quite a lot of them. And down here it's TV comedy, and for me that's 90% British comedy. Love all my classic old Britcoms, so yep, got those in tubs. This little rack over here is all the video games. Now it's kind of protected by some series of Steven Seagal posters. Under Siege 2, Executive Decision, and Fire Down Below. And that box needs a home at the moment, but below that we've got some box PC games I've collected over the years, Wing Commander 3. And then these tubs below it are all the PlayStation 2 original games. So yeah, when I want to play a PS2 game, I grab them from here. So underneath the Man-Bog poster and the Get the Terrorists and War Bust VHS covers, got a couple of bigger items. The Sure Scope sets fit in nicely over here. I want to get to those. They are giant, quite oversized things. I have a little tub here of Tarantino films. One of those directors that didn't know how to... it's not really action, it's not really drama, it's just Tarantino. So it has his own little tub. Video CDs. Got a little section here, which I play on that dedicated Sony VCD player. Really happy with my collection of video CDs there. It's pretty much all action films or Cat 3 horror kind of stuff. Yeah, a little shelf down here. I popped my drink, got my mints, got my Under Siege mug, and got my bottle of J&B, just because I need to have a bottle of J&B. And a few vintage video folders down there from back in the day. But excitingly, in here, we have my Laserdiscs. So yeah, got a small collection. Pretty much, again, it's the stuff that is not on DVD. Has a bit of a focus on sort of Hong Kong titles. These are the things that really are not on DVD. So, yeah, that's the main stuff I enjoy collecting on Laserdisc these days. I don't see much point in collecting Laserdiscs for things that are on DVD. And it's also used as a coffee table for books. So if I move that couch out of the way, which is not hard to do, I can get full access to the Asian section, which is not horror, at least for the most part. Pretty much all action and martial arts. There are some exceptions, but that's pretty much what the theme is over here. We got some box sets up the top. Got a few old school Living Dead dolls hanging up there for no real reason. An old film canister, film reel, my brother found at a garage sale one day, and I've got it hanging up there. Looks neat. And then we start off with Shaw Brothers, and wow, and a Shout Factory really knocking these out with these sets. So I've got 4 there. Got the Brave Archer collection, and this spot reserved for the Tai Lung set, which is on its way to me at the moment. Very, very nice to have those sets. Nice consolidated Shaw Brothers films. I've got the 88 films here of their singular titles. They were the first sort of cab off the rank doing Shaw Brothers films on Blu-ray. So it's always nice to have them. You can see they're not in numerical order, they're in alphabetical, which meant the titles that are duplicates in either these sets or these sets, I've passed on. I do not have the room to have a complete collection for the sake of spine numbers. That is dead. I don't do that anymore. No room, no need. Then we've got some sort of actors slash directors put together. This is the Stephen Chow slash any sort of Asian comedy section. More Shaw Brothers over here. These are the IVL DVDs. Rapidly diminishing with all the Blu-rays coming out. This used to be huge. But there are still plenty that are incredibly hard to find. Things like, you know, Heads for Sale. If that ever makes it into a Blu-ray box, I'll be a happy, happy man. We go down to the very large Jackie Chan collection. We've got a few old Hong Kong Legend DVDs, but then predominantly it's 88 films and Eureka films have been really, really knocking it out of the park. A lot of Jackie Chan there. It's all in chronological order. We go into Sammo Hung. A bunch of his either directed or starring in, mainly starring in roles. And then we've got a few over here that are Cynthia Rothrock titles, where she has done Hong Kong films. I need a sticker for those, but yeah. And then on the sideways, there's a few collections. You know, Street Fighter and some Sammo Hung ones there. So use all the space I can. And we go down here. Got Jet Li, all his films that I've got. Some new additions. There's the Heroes and Villains. Once Upon a Time in China. I haven't even shown those yet. We'll get there soon. Chow Yun Fat. A whole bunch of those ones there. Things like Tiger on the Beat. Classics like Hard Boiled. When are we going to get a proper Blu-ray of that one? I mean proper, not the crappy ones that are out now. Takeshi Miike or Mike. Quite a lot of films from him. He's quite an eclectic director. This is my favourite names section in the entire room. Heroic Bloodshed and Girls with Guns. Geez, that made me happy to put together. I was giggling the whole time. So, yeah, you've got everything from The Long Arms of the Law through to things like Sea Wolves, which is, I think, like part 7, I think, of the In the Line of Duty films. Great stuff like Big Bullet. And, yeah, plenty of Girls with Guns films in here as well. So, you know, things like Inspector Wears Skirts 4. Parts 1 and 2 are now easily available. The Rika trilogy there. Some Blu-rays. And then we get into sort of classic Kung Fu over here. We've got a lot of collections. And some Blu-rays. How this is sorted, not really decided at this point. Mainly this is putting the Blu-rays together. And then just kind of A to Z of, This is a lot of your dubbed, sort of chop-socky kind of late night TV, dubbed kung fu kind of stuff. It's always got its place. Modern martial arts films, so a lot of your wire fu and that kind of stuff, or just maybe not martial arts, but just modern Asian films, sort of ends up in here. And that goes into the Blu-rays as well. Some of these great ones that are coming out through Yes Asia. Good fun films in there. And then we do go into the Eastern Eyes, that the non-horror ones for the most part. So you got some classic samurai films in there, but you've also got some more modern things like the SPL trilogy or Ong Bak. So this is the Asian film selection. And starting with Schwarzenegger, this is the A to Z of action films. Blu-ray and DVD. This first shelf here is pretty much organised by action star and how big they are. It made sense to me at the time. That's why you have Schwarzenegger at number 1, and you have Stallone at number 2. You can argue about that, ordering it all you like, but that's how I've done it. Then things like Van Damme gets his own section. Dolph Lundgren gets his own section. Quite a lot of Dolph. A lot of Dolph. Love me some Dolph. Some Seagal, of course. And kind of just goes on like that. I've got a pretty burgeoning Scott Adkins collection over here. Even end up with a lot of Luke Goss films. Who would have thought that would have been a thing? But here we are. Wesley Snipes films. Charles Bronson. A lot of Bronson. That collection grew in the last sort of 24 months. Got some Chuck Norris. A lot of those have improved. Some nice new selections here. Really, really cool. Some Nick Cage, more action films. And it kind of goes on like that. You've got all of the trashy Bruce Willis direct-to-video films. Oh dear, 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 oh dear. There's quite a lot of them. Got the handful of what's his face? Completely just forgot his name. I'll just call him Neo. Don the Dragon Wilson section over here. We kind of get into the sort of B tier 90s and 80s stars at this point, mainly 90s. So Don the Dragon Wilson, Oliver Gruner, Mark Dacascos. Gary Daniels. I need to get a few more dividers. Cynthia Rothrock's sort of American films over there. And down to like Eric Roberts and people like that. Over here we have a little blaxploitation section. Pretty much self-explanatory. And goes over to here. And this kind of overflow here is kind of sort of action collections and, multi-packs and that kind of thing. So, And over here, good friend of mine made me a Simpsons caricature, so that's me. So there you have it. That's what the man cave in the media room looks like for 2024. A lot of changes from last year, a lot of new shelving, a lot of rearranging of things, a lot of label guns, that's for sure. I'm pretty happy with how it all looks and how I can get to stuff. Sure, I wish I had more space, but don't we all? I'm pretty good at playing Tetris and making stuff fit, so that's the man cave. Lots of records, lots of Blu-rays, lots of good times to be had. Hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you've got any questions about the man cave, leave them in the comments. And make sure you like, subscribe, check out this guy, that guy, whichever guy. And I'll see you next time.